So in this video, I want to talk about the matrix. We usually talk about the matrix in this kind of objective, externalized, collective type of sense, but I want to talk about the internal and subjective components of the matrix, more like how the matrix actually starts to like hook into you. So let me just dive into something here. Um, we've all got some challenges. We're all working through challenges and various types of problems. Now, if a problem is articulated by the matrix, if we're using the language or the articulation given by the matrix, it's a problem that's created within the matrix. And so no rearrangement of the matrix is going to solve the problem, because the problem itself is a particular way of like weaving the matrix. It's a particular articulation of the matrix, literally. So what is the matrix? It's the aggregate of all unconscious mechanisms. Because it's unconscious, it can't act upon itself. It can't genuinely change itself. It can only reproduce itself. It's a homeostatic system, basically. So if you've somehow in your life like fallen out through the cracks of the matrix, if you feel like you've kind of like, if you're the glitch, like if you've jammed something, some mechanism, and this created some chain reaction, and something kind of ended up spitting you out of the matrix you were in, you'll know what I'm talking about. Be grateful, because this is a huge opportunity for your own growth and evolution of your consciousness that the matrix was not going to give to you. I mean, in some sense, like it did by spitting you out, but it was not about your authentic consciousness, because the matrix can't genuinely recognize authenticity or your consciousness because it's unconscious. Recognition is something that can only happen between or within consciousness or within awareness. And so the matrix is the set of all unconscious mechanisms, but it's also not homogeneous. There's different registers in here, and they're kind of like, different cities with like different pockets of neighborhoods in them, and then there's your own little street on the neighborhood. And one of the biggest tricks that the matrix has, if you will, is this skill with which it can get very personalized. So basically you have and you operate within your own little personal Truman Show, if you will, your own personal matrix that is highly adapted for your specific biases, your preferences, your desires, your trauma. And this is why it can go undetected for so long, because the reflection you end up seeing everywhere looks like it's supporting you. It looks like it's affirming you. I mean, and in some sense it is. It's affirming the beliefs that you have. And so it's kind of encouraging you, and your own personal matrix will naturally find a way to like hook into the larger matrix, like to the larger pool of mechanisms that you can plug into, because you've been groomed essentially to find a way to plug into that. Okay, until this might happen at different times for different people. This will continue until some deeper or more authentic inner spark that you have, some more authentic place you have within you, like it starts walking and talking and showing its face, and it starts to want to do its own things. And this is all great, and you start working to meet unmet needs, and you start seeking the answer to open questions that you have, or you simply start just cultivating like your own authentic path of higher desires. Maybe this starts going outside the scope of the matrix. All of a sudden, your personalized matrix can't adapt to this. Like patterns are broken, the energetic flow is now a mismatch. The matrix is not receiving your energy, or it's not receiving as much or in the same places. And guess what? You stop receiving the validation and the confirmation from the matrix, and all of these other benefits of plugging into unconscious mechanism. And so there's important caveats here, because obviously we know This is a simplification, but it's for the purposes of seeing or finding your aha moment at the right level of observation. We have to be at the proper level of scale here in order for you to actually see the consequences of this situation for your life. It's like using an aperture or the kaleidoscope. You have to keep adjusting this to get like the right depth of focus, or it will just stay out of focus. You won't actually see the precise image of like how this is affecting your life. So number one, just because an unconscious mechanism is unconscious is not intrinsically or does not intrinsically mean that it would be inauthentic if you were awake and consciously choosing it, which you might still do. It would just cease being a mechanism that you were using to replace consciousness with, or to absolve yourself from the burden of having to have consciousness in a certain area. I mean, I think a lot of the time it's likely that it's going to be something inauthentic if you were not awake when you were choosing it, so to speak. But there's other factors at play, like, some influence from your higher self might have been at play. So it might still be your authentic choice, but you have to be awake for that to be the case. And then number two here is that detaching from unconscious mechanism will absolutely always be an extremely individual process, because the only way you can do it is by connecting and maintaining a relationship to your higher self, to your own access to source consciousness. Whatever concepts you want to use here, the framework is basically the same. Like, you are tapping into your own higher source of energy. And so you can use what concepts work for you here. And I know also, like, there are huge areas still within higher education, within professional science, that don't or just won't ever acknowledge consciousness for what it actually is, which is way beyond sense perception. It's beyond the brain, it's beyond the body. Consciousness is not an emergent property of a system. Consciousness is already fundamental, and these systems are just working like filters on consciousness. So everything filters it in a specific way. But back to the main thread, if there's some problem or block that's holding you back, and especially if you find it's in any way connected to your own feelings, that you need some type of confirmation, or you still need some type of like unconscious approval or validation, or you would just like to like hear that kind of like, yeah, you're right, this is like the right thing for you or for your next steps, you really need to start dismantling your own unconscious mechanisms, because that type of like external validation need is like that's like the gold dust that the matrix feeds off of most. That's like the biggest hook. And so what you want to do, and this is where I've talked about this in some of my other videos on validation, which you should watch. And what you want to do is you want to like get to really know the shape of the way that you are sourcing this validation, and you want to know your sources, because you want to find ways of, if it's not outright replacing, like, I'm not trying to say that like validation from someone else is bad, like that's not what I'm saying, because I think it's actually, there's an important place for that. But it's just that we don't want to be receiving this or seeking it from a place of deficit where we're already in deficit, and then that just sets us up to like always be reactive and to never be in touch with like our own inner knowing. And so all of this, I know it's been like a very simple way to put all of this. It's basically, all of this is what we call the inner work. This is the inner work you have to do. And it's definitely not something you can like complete in a month. You can start it, and you can definitely start making that like 1 degree shift that you can like work on every day, like daily, just bringing in like 1 more degree of consciousness to what you're doing, consciousness to what you're feeling, consciousness to what you're really worried about. Take it seriously, like journal about it, review your notes. And again, so I've started to talk a lot about this in some of my videos on validation, so I'd encourage you to check those out. And then I'm asking too, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the channel so I can keep bringing out these videos, because I do want to bring in guests with some bigger numbers here, and we're going to take some really deep dives into like the actual questions. And yeah, so I hope this video gave you some new angle on your own personal matrix. Definitely like ask your questions if there's something I didn't address, something doesn't quite line up with the way you were imagining this. Definitely like drop this in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. I'll keep talking. I'll be back with some more, and I'll see you in the comments.